short for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is a law that makes available a free and appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities throughout the nation, and ensures special education and related services to those children. This law required that all public schools receiving federal funding provide the same type of quality education for disabled children. At a glance, IDEA means that schools must find and evaluate students thought to have disabilities at no cost to families. As a nation's special education law, IDEA provides rights and protections to children with disabilities and to their parents. IDEA entitles parents a voice in their child's education. Under IDEA, you have a say in the decisions the school makes about your child. At every point in the process, the law gives you specific rights and protections. These are called procedural safeguards. For example, one safeguard is that the school must get your consent before providing services to the child. IDEA covers kids from birth through high school or age 21, or whichever comes first. It provides early intervention services to children up to age 3, and special education for children older than 3 in public schools. Services under IDEA. Who's eligible? Not every child is eligible for special education under IDEA, and having a diagnosis doesn't guarantee eligibility. To qualify, your child must have a disability that falls under one of 13 categories. These are autism, deaf, blindness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairments such as ADHD, a specific learning disability such as dyslexia, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, visual impairment, including blindness. But it's important to understand that having one of these disabilities doesn't automatically qualify a child under IDEA. To be eligible, a student must need special education to make progress in school. If, for instance, a student has ADHD and is doing very well in school, the student might not be covered by IDEA. Sometimes schools and parents disagree over whether a child is covered. When that happens, IDEA provides options for resolving this type of dispute. To get services under IDEA, an evaluation must be done. You can request an evaluation at any time, and if the school thinks a child might have a disability, it must conduct an evaluation in its own. The evaluation not only determines if a student has a disability, it also sheds light on what services and support that student might need. After the evaluation, the school will hold an eligibility meeting to decide if your child qualifies for special education. If the answer is yes, you'll work with the school team to develop an individualized education program, which is an IEP. The role of the parent is to be the child's most important advocate. The law gives you a say in decisions about your child's education, as well as many other key rights, and it's important to know and understand these rights. There has been subsequent amendments as reflected in IDEA that have led to an increased emphasis on access to general education curriculum, the provision of services for the disabled, transition planning, and accountability for the achievement of students with disabilities. In the last 40+ years, we have advanced our expectations for all children, including children with disabilities. Classrooms have become more inclusive, and the future of children with disabilities is brighter. The 4 main points of IDEA are: to provide a free and appropriate public education to children with disabilities. 2. Require schools to find and evaluate students suspected of having disabilities, called Child Find. And 3. Provide children with special needs the education and related services they need, such as speech therapy or counseling, to meet their unique needs. And 4. To provide and help students make progress in school. In my paper, I focus on how the law is changing and how it has helped. For example, I talked about how funding for the law has not changed since it was enacted in 1975. That is a major issue since the number of children with disabilities has more than doubled. Clearly, that formula is irrelevant to the numbers that are being calculated today, but officials are seeing the discrepancies and are trying to change that. One of the key parts of my paper was talking about how school districts have failed to uphold this law in such cases as DL versus District of Columbia in 2011, in which the District of Columbia failed to identify, locate, and evaluate hundreds of preschool children with disabilities, and failed to provide them with a free, appropriate public education as required by IDEA. Jana K. versus Annaville-Cleona School District in 2014, in which the parents' failure to notify the district that a physician had diagnosed their daughter with depression did not excuse the district's failure to conduct an evaluation of their own. Another aspect of my paper focused on IDEA providing a least restrictive environment for learning for children with disabilities. This meant that children should spend as much time as possible with peers who do not receive special education. For some school districts, that meant mainstreaming. Most importantly, I shed light on some of the difficulties other nations have on providing education to children with disabilities. Access to education for the disabled across the world continues to be an area fraught with challenges and little progress. Places like Brazil implemented their first inclusion policy in 1989. In 1949, Chinese government instituted laws and policies to safeguard the right for education with children with disabilities. In Denmark, the Folkeskole Act enacted in 1994 required that all public schools meet the needs of all students by differentiating instruction within inclusive classrooms. The IDEA Act is important to many of us, and I urge you to read my paper, and I thank you for listening.